Tree Talking Time is brought to you by Conkey's Outdoors. Get all your hound hunting needs at conkeys.com. Welcome to Tree Talking Time, where we talk all things tree dogs, from the smallest fights to the largest hounds, treating squirrels to bears and everything in between. And from time to time, we might even run a little fast game.
Well, let me tell you about an interesting visit that I had probably 20 years ago with a guy named Joe Caldwell, who was a professional. He was a nuisance animal exterminator.
Okay.
In Arizona, and my wife and I were. We both of us were teachers, and during our spring break, and instead of going to Florida, we went to Arizona just for somewhere different. Went to the Red Rocks, and I knew that this Joe Caldwell had been in and out of our association, and we were going to be close to where he was, and just kind of on a whim when we got out to where we were going around Prescott Valley. I called and was lucky enough to get to talk to him and visited with him on the phone. And he invited us to come to where he lived and visit, which was a neat ride from where we were staying through the mountains to his place, and saw his house, and he has a lot of different stories to tell about his life as a professional hunter, and that some of the ranchers and different people that he had dealt with, and the dogs that he used, and he had been a member of the Treeing Tennessee Brindle Breeders Association off and on for several years, and when we got there, he didn't have any Treeing Tennessee Brindles, but he had hunted with them. He had some that I think at one time probably had come from Dr. Larry Soa out in Oregon.
Yeah,
and Dr. Soa, I think, probably provided a lot of dogs to people in the Southwest and to Texas who used them for. In Texas, they for hog hunting, and for Joe Caldwell, there is his job as a kind of an exterminator of mountain lions there in the Southwest desert area on the ranches. He was a very interesting guy to talk to. And like I said, we had a great visit with Mr. Caldwell, and he told us about his education on how he got into what the job that he wanted or job that he had.
Yeah,
and it was just a very interesting visit with him. Like I said, he was familiar with the Brindle dogs at that time that we were there at his place. It was kind of a downtime for him. He wasn't doing any hunting at that time.
Okay.
And I don't know what he was doing, but he had some dogs, but they weren't the Treeing Tennessee Brindles. But like I said, he was very familiar with them. He probably had some contact, and I don't recall, with Dr. Soa up in Oregon to get some dogs down that way.
I have a mutual friend of Dr. Soa's, and I've been on him he does a podcast, and I've been like, you need to go talk to him.
Yeah, that would be good. Dr. Larry be a very interesting person to talk to about all his different connections and a lot of different things that he's encountered in his life with as a veterinarian and as a politician, and how politics and veterinary medicine and wildlife go hand in hand, but sometimes they conflict. And he saw all the sides of it, and he's a very, very knowledgeable person on these dogs. How he happened to get into them way before I did, I'm not sure. I know he's told me before just how he happened to get involved with the brindle dogs, but I can't really recall how he said.
Well, we're going to have to just put a little call to action out here to my listeners, because my listeners, I'm sure, are aware of our mutual friend who is Buddy Woodbury, the owner and one of the sponsors of this podcast, W Hunting Supply.
Oh, okay.
And I've been on Buddy to go, because he's mentioned him multiple times. And I didn't even know what kind of cur dogs he had until I did a little digging. But because he just meant, oh yeah, he's got some cur dogs.
Well, and I know Dr. Soa had. He was very big in the Treeing Tennessee Brindles. He also had some leopard dogs, as well, and he was primarily a cat and bear hunter.
Yeah,
and but the strange thing, in a way, was a lot of his dogs a few years back came from Indiana and from Ron McLean in Pennsylvania. That went out. He purchased here and had shipped, flown out there to Oregon using his gene pool. I remember he flew out here, landed in Chicago, rented a car, drove from up in Chicago down to Logansport, where we had our brindle hunt. Got with a guy that he made friends with, a guy named Frank Burton, and he and Frank over the weekend drove out to Ron McLean's, picked up some pups, drove out to Pennsylvania, drove back to Indiana. Then he went to Chicago, loaded the pups up, and flew them out. I mean, just, coast to coast practically deal to get some pups that he wanted, some of the blood that he wanted from Ron McLean. And so he also would do the same thing when he'd fly to Indiana. A lot of times he'd get a pup or two and get them on a plane and fly them out. Back out to Oregon. But he's very, very devoted to this breed. I know he and his brother-in-law one summer drove out from Oregon. He drove out and visited with us just for a short time. He had there were some pups on the ground out here that with the blood that he wanted, and got 3 or 4 of them and headed back to Oregon.
That's awesome.
Drive 2/3 the way across the country to pick up pups.
Yeah.
That tells you a little bit about his devotion to the breed.
Yeah. So for all of you listeners that would like to hear an interview with Doc Soa, you need to call Buddy and you need to ask for it, because Buddy can then just go do it in person, and it'll be better than on a phone. So.
Yeah. Just a world of knowledge on the Treeing Tennessee Brindle dogs and how they ended up in the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah, definitely. That's pretty interesting. Well, for everyone listening, we're going to talk about Treeing Tennessee Brindles once again tonight, and I have Don on the phone. Don, why don't you tell me about yourself?
Well, I've been involved with the Treeing Tennessee Brindles. I got involved in about 1976, 77, and had various bloodlines of the Brindle dogs, and all the way through till right now.
Okay.
They're just a nice sized dog, a very versatile hunting dog. The ones when I started out, there weren't a lot of people squirrel hunting with them, but they made good squirrel dogs.
Yeah.
But just not a lot of people hunted them on squirrels because everybody was more into coon hunting.
Oh, sure, back then,
as things came around and people saw how versatile they were, there are a lot of people switched over and hunted them on squirrels. Most of my dogs could, if you took them in the daytime, they were squirrel dogs. If you took them at night, they were coon dogs. Mm-hmm. And I never complained if they treated coon in the daytime.
Yeah.
And if they treated slick tree at night, that was probably a squirrel.
Yeah.
At least I tell people that.
There you go. So what did you have before the Brindles?
I started out with a neighbor guy had an old black dog. It's just kind of a great dog. And he knew I had beagles. And he said, "Hey, if you ever want to take old Smoke and go coon hunting, and you do that." And I said, "Well, let me get somebody to go with me," because I didn't know much about it.
Yeah.
And I was teaching school, and I had in driver education, I had this kid that talked about coon hunting a lot. So I got with him, and he and I hooked up together. And so I was hunting a black dog with, and that young guy had a black and tan. So I hunted with black and tan for just a short while, and did a lot of reading in full cry.
Yeah.
And reading from cover to cover back in the day, and I was reading the Treeing Tennessee Brindle articles. At that time, they were written by Al Mazza.
Okay.
And Al Mazza was I thought was a real good writer. And some of the things he talked about the dogs, but he talked a lot about the people that were in the association and the various friendships that he had made, kind of as an outsider moving, and when he got into it. And I enjoyed reading his stuff, and I contacted, I think, Reverend Phillips, who was kind of the founder of the breed, and he told me to get a hold of a guy that lived fairly close to me, and I knew who the guy was, and I knew he had a brindle colored dog, but I didn't really know too much about the dog. So I got a hold of the guy and got a yearbook, and the guy told me, well, he said he's not a registered dog, but he said, I kind of think that's what he is, a Treeing Tennessee Brindle. Okay. Well, and after I did some kind of not research, but just did some checking a few years after I met with the guy, I found out what the dog was. He was half yellow mountain cur and half plot hound.
Okay.
And as I think back about it, that's probably what a lot of the Treeing Tennessee Brindle dogs were, was a little of this and a little of that.
Oh, yeah.
But they were trying to get a breed standard and, some kind of background. Mm-hmm. And so this guy that had the dog and I, we got to be good friends, and I hunted that guy's dog for him quite often. He was an older guy, and I enjoyed hunting that dog for him. And after I got the magazine or got the yearbook, I got hooked up with L.C. Burdett, and he lived about an hour away from me, hour and a half away, and got hooked up with him and went down and got a pup from him. And that was the first one I had.
Okay.
Got it started pretty good, and I think when the dog was 2.5, he got had a physical problem, and I had to have him put down. So I was out of the brindle dog business for a short time. Another friend who was kind of a dog trader, got with me at the Coon Hunters Club meeting and said, "Hey, I got a brindle dog here out at my place. Why don't you check on him, see if he's something that you want?" Well, I went and got it, and it was an original mountain cur.
Okay.
She was a brindle dog, and I hunted her and really liked her. So I told her, I got a hold of the guy named M.L. Bear Grizel, who was the breed inspector at the time. And I told him, I said, I got this dog. She meets the Brindle standard, but she's an original mountain cur. Can I single register her in the Brindle Association? And that was how they were taking some dogs in at that time. So I single registered a Brindle mountain cur as a Treeing Tennessee Brindle.
Okay.
As you know, I had done some homework prior to that, and on the history of the dogs, there were a lot of the dogs that had been registered as Treeing Tennessee Brindles were either Brindle mountain curs or half mountain cur, half something else. So I was well within the rules and the limits of what I was doing, and so that I went from not having one to having a real good female that I really liked.
Nice. You kind of just touched.
Person. Go ahead.
You just kind of touched on the history a little bit. Do you know much about the history of the breed and how it actually got started?
Well, yeah, in a way I do.
I figured.
If everything you hear is halfway true, I can tell you that part. Reverend Phillips, who was kind of the founder of that breed, had been in the mountain cur, original mountain cur group for a while, and he wanted just the brindle dogs. Mr. Stevens, Hugh Stevens, kind of one of the black ones, and for whatever reason, Reverend Phillips, he stayed with the brindle dogs, and he just kind of was writing a article in Full Cry and encouraged people who had these or had the knowledge of these dogs to contact him by way of Full Cry, and he kind of started the group that way.
Okay.
And he had a lot of different people contacting. So yeah, it said that they had the dogs, or they remembered Grandpa had a little brindle dog that was a real good dog. And so Reverend Phillips, by way of Full Cry, kind of expanded it out and started his Buck Creek strain of dogs.
Roughly when was that?
That was probably the early 60s.
Okay.
He Reverend Phillips, what I had read, he was big in treeing walkers and wanted something maybe a little different, I think. He was getting up in age, and I don't think he didn't do a whole lot of hunting, but he had a lot of. He had two sons and grandkids, and he was a pastor, so he had a congregation. And if anybody showed any interest in hunting, he would fix them up with the dog.
Yeah.
He had he got a lot of people started with that, with the brindle dogs. And a lot of people in his congregation were hunting his dogs for him. Because at at his age, he started probably with those dogs in his middle 70s. Well,
okay,
that's you have to be pretty ambitious to be going out on an adventure like that.
Yeah, but it's still pretty impressive that in his middle 70s he started something that is still going on today, which is
that's still
50 years later.
Still going. Yeah. During that time, about the time I got in, there were the middle 70s. There was some kind of rift in the association, and some of the people from the that were hooked up with the Burdett family and the Arbor Acres dogs kind of got their feelings hurt one way or another. And I don't know too much about that because that was about the time I got in.
Mm-hmm.
And about the only thing that was really left was the Buck Creek line of dogs. And I went to the meeting over at Florida, Illinois in 76 or 77, probably 77. And I had the only Arbor Acre dog there. And I was kind of the black sheep of the family because most of the Arbor Acre people were done with the association for whatever reason.
Yeah.
I didn't really find out too much about it other than I knew they weren't real happy about something that had gone on prior to me getting in.
Yep.
I didn't know anything about it, so I just went on over to be in on it,
mm-hmm.
on the events and the activities there.
Yeah.
And at that point, kind of got involved in the whole association.
Okay. And you've been pretty involved in the association through the years, haven't you?
Yeah, I have. Once I got my foot in maybe not my foot in the door, but maybe my neck in the noose on some of the stuff. I've been involved in it as secretary and treasurer for a long time.
Yeah.
But I've also been the president and vice president. But I've been secretary and treasurer probably for a long time.
And you've been the author of the Full Cry articles for a long time.
Well, I've done that, and as well as the Brindle yearbook.
Okay.
And I'm trying to kind of get away from some of that and get more people involved in doing that. By writing the article in the new Full Cry, and get somebody else involved in the helping with the yearbook. But the yearbook and the Full Cry article are two real important things. I feel like for people to be, we got to keep a good article in the magazine and keep a yearbook out so people can stay up on a little bit about our dogs.
Yeah. Honestly, there's not a lot of information out there about them other than the article. And I mean, obviously you guys are still putting a yearbook out, but you got to be a member to get that. So, the way for people to discover them, I would say probably still is Full Cry.
Oh yeah, and I was glad to see that Full Cry kind of got revived, and because so many people, I'm from the older generation. Not everybody likes to sit down and read it on everything on Facebook. Some people like to pick up the magazine and open it up and kick back in the easy chair in the evening and read Full Cry, and that's kind of where I was or where I am, and I'm I'm a big supporter of Full Cry and getting an article coming out every month because not everybody is interested in treeing Tennessee Brindles, but sometimes there's a little bit of something in there that interests people about the dogs or the people that hunt them.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I'm right there with you as far as I'm fairly young. I'm 33, but but I still love to sit down with a magazine. And my listeners know this because I've had Danny and Jason, the new owners, on. I've had Mark Booth, the owner of Southern Hound Hunting, on. So like, I love a print magazine, and so.
Yeah, and I can't do anything but wish the new Full Cry people all the best, and that was just like a rebirth, seeing that magazine come out, because it had been a staple to so many people for so long, and have that taken, or not there, it just really let the air out of a lot of people's sails, it seemed like, because people who'd been subscribing to it for a long time had seen it get a little smaller and then have it, just go away. It just wasn't quite right.
Mm-hmm.
It's just part of what coon hunters and squirrel hunters need is a magazine like that.
Yep. No, and I think they knocked it out of the park, and I've told them that, I've said that on this podcast, that, I really enjoyed that first one, and I'm looking forward to the next one.
Oh, yeah. They did a good job with it, and I just hope they get all the support that they need, plus a little extra.
Well, I was actually on the phone today with the owner, and it sounds like they're doing pretty good.
Good.
Subscriptions are up. They've got a lot of, contributions as far as articles and stuff. So, I mean, as long as that continues. So, obviously when something's new, it's easy to, breathe a little life into it, but hopefully they can sustain that, and people will continue to still support it. So, because that's what it boils down to, is people need to support it.
I just hope that the readers don't get discouraged about it only coming out every other month.
Mm-hmm.
But there again, I can see their point. Until things really get going, maybe they will want to go monthly.
Yeah.
But the way Full Cry was, or toward the old Full Cry was, it was kind of getting thin. So maybe with new life, they'll have the intention of maybe going a little bit larger, or more issues.
And part of that decision is just time. They just had a brand new baby, so they didn't want to bite off too much more than they could chew off the bat. So
that was. But like I said, it was a big undertaking.
Yeah.
But when you read about what they wanted to do, we got the right people in there in the driver's seat, I believe.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Conkey's Outdoors is proud to be a sponsor of Tree Talking Time. Family, hunting, tradition is the Conkey's motto. They understand the importance of passing down the tradition of hound hunting. They are a family-owned business that treats you like family. They also understand the importance of having the gear you need when you need it. Conkey's carries everything for your next hunt, and it ships to your door quick. They also offer great warranties on all tracking systems and financing options. Check them out at conkeys.com. You can also use the code TreeTalkingTime5 in all caps to save as well. So, I kind of cut you off when you were talking about your dogs, and so you had that female that you single registered.
Yeah.
Where did and then you also got that other dog you said from the one line. But what else did you?
Well, I had the Barb Acres line, and I wanted to after I lost my male, and I was always wanting another Barb Acres male, and I could never get one. Just because of the Burdettes were living in Indiana. They moved to Kentucky, and they were hard to contact to get anything. And so I had my little mountain cur female, and then someone contacted myself or somebody that I was hunting with, when told about a member over in Illinois who had lost his life, and his wife was wanting to get rid of his dogs.
Mm-hmm.
So this other guy and I went over and purchased I got a brindle female, and I'm not sure. I don't remember what dog he got from this person's estate, and I got a nice little female. I wasn't real thrilled about her being the bloodline that she was, and I guess I was being too picky. But between the two, the Mountain Cur female and this little Buck Creek female, I had a pair of female dogs that were just a lot of fun to hunt. Mm-hmm. They were both squirrel dogs, and they were both good coon dogs, and they were fun to hunt together.
Nice.
Or one by themselves or the other by themselves. Mm-hmm. At that time, I was able to get both of those dogs bred, and was able to supply some pups to a lot of different people at different times. And mm-hmm. I think I probably raised some good pups, or got good pups in good people's hands that enjoy the kind of dogs that the Brindle dogs were. Mm-hmm. They, for the most part, they were fairly close hunting dogs. They hunted with you. They handled very good. Just more pleasure dog than ever a competition type dog. Mm-hmm. But they were critter getters for sure. I mean, yeah. If you took them the daytime and you were squirrel hunting, they did their best to please you that way, or take them at night, and they were going to get treed on a coon somewhere. And they didn't have to go deep to do it. And that was the thing that I liked. Mm-hmm. They hunted the patch woods where I'm at, and everything's set up, and the roads are about a mile apart, mile squared, and each mile about had a patch woods or two in it, and with a fence row going in, mm-hmm. and you could hunt down the fence row and into the patch, and you knew where your dogs were all the time. Yeah. It was before you ever had to worry about it, putting a tracking system on them, mm-hmm. just because of the way they hunted and handled.
Now, were those dogs open on track, or are they silent on track?
They on coon, they'd open enough so you knew what they were doing.
Okay.
On squirrels, when they barked, they retreat, and, mm-hmm. and they didn't. Very seldom would they ever open on a squirrel track.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they wouldn't, but it was very seldom. Maybe when the squirrels were rutting, if they were running around a lot, maybe they would. But basically they were open on coon and still on a squirrel.
Now, would you say the dogs today are pretty similar to that then?
The ones I've got now are very similar to that. Yeah, that part hasn't. I don't think it's changed. Mm-hmm. When we were at the Brindle hunt last weekend at Clay City, Illinois, on the squirrel cast I was on, when a dog opened, he was treed.
Yeah.
You could see him working a track a little bit, but you never heard them. Mm-hmm. So they were, when they barked, they were treed.
Awesome. Why don't you talk about the hunt you just had? How was your turnout this year?
Turnout was very small. That was kind of an unfortunate deal. Maybe poor timing on the Brindle Association part, because the National Current Vice Breeders Association had their World Hunt the same weekend.
Oh, okay.
And the locations were, I'm going to say, 70 miles apart.
Yeah.
So that really hurt us by having a World Hunt that close.
Yeah.
So during our meeting on Saturday, we decided that we'd have to make some adjustment in our scheduling. Mm-hmm. And how that happened, I guess I don't know. I'm a member of both groups, and why we didn't, why the Brindle people didn't change ours, make ours a week earlier or a week later. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But it hurt our turnout.
Makes sense.
The thing, our turnout was small, but the enthusiasm of the hunters was good. We had some good hunts, but there just weren't a lot of hunters or a lot of dogs.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense. Like you said, being that close to the world hunt. So
yeah, and I don't know, and I haven't talked to anybody over at the Eleanor Outdoor Club that hosted that to see what kind of turnout they had. But I don't think I don't know that there were any Treeing Tennesse Brindles there.
mm-hmm.
But I'm sure there probably were some people at their event that ordinarily might have showed up at ours.
Yeah.
But it's more, if you're into the competition part of it, you're a lot better off placing at the World Hunt than you are at the Brindle Hunt.
Yeah.
And I understand that, so it is what it is. And I know, we're going to work on changing our date and working with the current vice people,
mm-hmm.
So that doesn't happen again.
Yeah, I understand. Now, so speaking of those hunts, those are both NKC sanctioned hunts. So NKC, I'm guessing, is the only registry that is that the only registry that registers the Treeing Tennesse Brindles?
No, they were. They're now registered with the United Kennel Club, but I'm not certain. I'm not certain if they are registered as Treeing Tennesse Brindles or if they are registered just under Treeing Cur,
gotcha,
as a blanket type thing.
Yeah.
When I first, going way back, the ACHA, which was the American Coon Hunters Association,
mm-hmm.
The Brindle Association had their own registry, and they ended up selling their registry to the American Coon Hunters Association.
Okay.
So the Brindle dogs at one time were ACHA registered.
Mm-hmm.
Then later on, and I'm not certain how long ago it's been, the American Kennel Club, the big
Yep.
American Kennel Club,
Yep.
also registered the Treeing Tennesse Brindles.
Okay.
And I don't know too much about that because I kind of got involved with the National Kennel Club. They've always been good to the Treeing Tennesse Brindles, and that's kind of where my loyalty lies with them.
Mm-hmm.
They registered, or they recognized the Treeing Tennesse Brindles as their own breed.
Yeah.
Some of the other registries just kind of put it in a blanket category, like Treeing Curs, and you're the same as a Stevens dog or a Treeing Cur or a leopard, just in a non-hound category.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have a Faulkner Cur, and I know with UKC.
Okay,
if I want to register with UKC, she'd be registered as a Treeing Cur.
Okay, yeah, right, yes, yeah, I'm a little bit familiar with the Faulkner dogs. Yeah,
mine. She turned a year old in the summer, and she's coming along. I mean, for as much as she's been hunted, I can't fault her for not being further when she hasn't had as much time as she should have in the woods. So
and I think I've met Gary Faulkner a time or two, and he was very sincere about his dogs and what he was doing with them and what he wanted. Yeah,
I heard recently that he's not doing well.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So I contacted him to try to have him on the podcast probably about a year and a half ago, and he told me to contact the guy that he kind of turned everything over to, and that's a guy named Steve Block. So Steve was on the podcast, and
okay.
that's who actually I got my pup from. But yeah, I was talking to Steve recently. He said Gary's health wasn't very well, wasn't doing work.
Yeah,
great.
well, Gary grew up about 30 miles south of me, and on his he'd been down to where he grew up, and contacted me on his way back to Wisconsin, and I had a nice visit with him, and enjoyed my time visiting with him.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought it was pretty nice that he even, he stopped by and we talked dogs for a good while.
Yeah. No, I talked to him for maybe 15, 20 minutes. Very informative, great conversation. But like he just wasn't. He was like, I'm kind of done with the dogs, and so.
Yeah.
But his son said he liked the podcast, so I was happy about that.
As I'm editing this podcast, I just kind of wanted to stop and make a note of that. Gary did pass away on November 1st, 2023. Just want to thank him for giving me the ability to talk about his dogs and giving me the contact with Steve and all he did for the Faulkner breed and for the community in general.
Well, that's good. And that's, I understand his part about being done with the dogs because I'm not there yet. But you reach a point and a time in your life when, it's, you got to slow down on a little bit of what you're doing.
Yeah.
And I'm not there yet, but I know it's coming.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of me having 4 brindle dogs out back, I'm down to 2.
Okay.
Just because as pappy time creeps up, I need to downsize so that I can do the dogs that I have justice rather than have too many and not be able to do them all justice.
Yeah, no, I understand.
And what I have, I hunt. I don't have them a pen full of 2 or 3 back that I just raise pups out of. I've never done that, and I understand some people can, but that isn't how I went about it.
Oh yeah, no, I think you get better dogs that way. I mean, I've had quite a few people on here and we've delved into breeding in depth, and you if you listen to the people that have consistently had good dogs, they don't keep brood females.
Yeah, I think that was, and I'm not picking on Reverend Phillips, but I think he had a pen full of dogs, but good dogs and brood females, and I think he had people that were hunting all those. But at that time he had that's when these dogs were first catching on, and he had probably a pretty good market for these dogs.
Yeah.
I'm not saying he mass produced them because I don't know. But I think, I don't think the pup stayed around very long.
Yeah.
He probably always had somebody wanting a pup.
No, I've talked to a handful of guys that are, a little older than me, and back in the 70s and 80s when coon prices were high, it was easy to sell puppies because everybody coon hunted, and everybody wanted a dog, so it was easy.
Yeah.
You figure hunter numbers were up by comparison to today.
Yeah. And I driving around the country up around here 10 years ago, this time of year, about every other truck had a dog box in it.
Yeah.
And now, if you see a dog box in there, it's an oddity.
Yeah.
Unless maybe they're bird hunters or beagle people. The only coon hunters around now that I'm really, really aware of are the money hunters at the club, at our local club.
Yep.
But that's they can do their thing, and I can take my brindle dogs, and instead of coon hunting, I can go squirrel hunting, and I can carry out 5 squirrels easier than they carry out 5 coons.
That's for sure.
And I don't think that anymore they wouldn't carry out 5 coons.
No. A friend of mine was saying somebody was asking him who's buying coon hides and around us, and it's like nobody's bought coon hides in 5-6 years.
Yeah, no, nobody is. Yeah, I did have 2 people ask me if I would kill a coon, if I would get it to them. They wanted to show their son, how to skin it and tan it.
Yeah.
And I said, yeah, I sure will. And I did that last year.
Mm-hmm.
And how that project went. And I do think, and I'm not certain, I do think that there's a part of 4-H that has something to do with taxidermy.
Okay.
I'm not sure, but that might have been where that project went.
Gotcha. Well, it wasn't a project that I undertook with my son. I did skin a couple years ago. I did skin out all my hides, and then at the end of the year, I kind of went through and I picked out the best couple, and I took them to a local woman that makes fur garments, and we had some hats made. So
yeah, that would have been really neat for the kids. Yes,
so like I said, it wasn't a project we did, but he got a coonskin cap for Christmas. But,
yeah, well, that's great. Yeah.
Probably the only kid that's ever in his in our local school system that's ever seen a real coonskin cap.
Yeah. Well, that'd be anymore. That might be if you wear that to school, you might not be real well accepted.
Maybe not.
A kid could have any kind of haircut and any color hair, but and get by with it. But the coonskin cap may not go real well. Yeah.
We definitely need some more stories about these brindle dogs.
Okay, I'm trying to think. I did have one story that about I'd been down to a friend's house and hunted at night, and he lived about 30 miles away. On the way back, I stopped at a gas station, get a can of pop, and a truck pulled in and had a dog box in there. And I started talking to the guy, and I remembered him. He had been at our local club back in the spring, and he was a hound man. And he and I were just shooting the breeze, and he wanted me. He said, "You want to drop out on the way home?" I said, "Well, if you got a place between here and my place, yeah. I don't want to have to backtrack." He said, "No." He said, "I got a place 5 miles out of town, and we'll hunt." I said, "Just one dump." And he said, "Okay." He said, "I want to see a brindle dog go, or see your cur dog go."
Yeah.
So we dumped out, and his dog was gone like a shot down the creek, and got in there and got treed. Well, my dog treed, wasn't very far ahead, and he said, "What's she doing?" I said, "Well, I think she's treed." And so we walked more headed to his dog. We looked, and Sue had a coon. He said, "Oh, an old rat or whatever his name was, run by that one." So I snapped her up and went on, and I turned her loose. I figured she'd go on down. His dog got treed and going down there. She treed again. Had 2 coon that his dog had run under, and he kind of laughed, and he says, "That shouldn't happen, but it did." And he said, "So and so," and I said, "Yeah, up there at the club." He says, "Don't ever tell him what just happened." Because I think he had bought the dog from that guy that he got the dog from that guy, and got his and Sue run past or run up there and got 2 trade behind him. But that was, like I said, you can hunt them down a ditch or something like that, and for the most part, they're going to go right down through there.
Yep.
And tree as they come to them. They don't have to go, have to kick their nose in gear after the first 400 yards. Mm-hmm. The thing that I really miss is my part of Indiana that we've lost a lot of fence rows.
Yeah.
Where it was so easy when we were summer hunting, you could take 2 pups and go down a ditch or a fence row, and we had mulberries, and it was easy to get a pup going with either with the water when they be down there playing in the water, or eat mulberries or wild cherries.
Yeah.
But they cut all the ditches back a lot, mm-hmm. and a lot of the fence rows are not there anymore.
Yep.
Just point A to point B rather than a wooded fence line.
Yep.
Which is really, it's hurt not only the coon hunting, but quail and pheasants as well.
Oh yeah.
That don't have the fence lines and the wooded ditch banks for their habitat.
Yep.
And that's unfortunate, but that's today's agriculture, and I'm involved in that too, so I understand both sides.
Nope, I get it. I'm right there with you.
Yeah.
Well, if that's all you got, I really appreciate you coming on.
You don't know how much I appreciate just being asked. I really do.
Well, like I said, hopefully we can inform some people about some Treeing Tennessee Brindles, and
if they need more information, they can contact you, I assume.
Yeah.
Or can I give them my address as well?
Whatever you want to give them.
Me not.
Whatever you want to. Whatever you're comfortable giving them.
Okay. If they're interested in Treeing Tennessee Brindles, get with me. My mailing address, 3286 East County Road 900 South in Walton, Indiana, 46994. If you would like to become a member, I don't have any current yearbooks, but I have some from 2022. I will send you for if you pay your membership for 2024. We'd be glad to have you as a member and get you enlightened a little bit about these great little versatile tree dogs.
Mm-hmm.
And thank you so much for having me on. It's my privilege.
I appreciate it.
You can find me on Facebook and Instagram at Tree Talking Media. And until next time, keep them talking in the timber.